Hello everyone, this is Ben, and in this video we're going to talk about why morality is not created by evolution, why it cannot be created by evolution. Now first of all, everyone has a sense of morality. It's not something that I can prove to you because I can't prove to you what you see, smell, hear, or touch, but you are simply aware of it yourself. So if you walk out into the road and you see a car coming, I don't give you logical proofs or evidences. You see the car for yourself, Well, it's the same way with morality. You have a sense about things that are right or wrong. So, for example, I heard a story about a Dutch woman who was a social worker who went to a distant country from where she lived, and she was there to help children, and she went to a place called Snake Alley in this city where really bad men came and would drink a lot of alcohol and drugs and snake's blood and do really bad things. And she said that she had to tear an 18-month-old baby girl from the arms of a man that was sexually raping that child. And we immediately, I'm guessing that you have a sense that, like, well, that's just wrong. I have that sense. And so, it doesn't really matter, even if you don't exist, even if you're, imaginary in some sort of weird illusion created by, I don't know, aliens or something. Who cares, right? The important thing is, like, you have that sense, even if I don't exist, and I have that sense, even if you don't exist. We all have that sense that, that's wrong, that some things are just objectively just wrong. Now, the idea that morality is a subjective man-made thing is not something we're going to address in this video, but what we are going to take a look at is the idea that this sense of morality that we have is an illusion created by evolution. So in other words, the idea is, like, we have evolved to have this sense to take care of babies, because creatures that take care of their babies, that have it, like, built into their brain wiring to have this instinct to, like, take care of babies, will be more likely to survive as a species. Whereas creatures that don't have that will be less likely to survive as a species. And so it's just a mutation that develops slowly over millions of years, and that's where our morality is ultimately just instincts that we've been programmed with through millions of years of natural selection and evolution. Now, the thing is, that cannot be the case. In other words, this idea that morality is just the product of evolution fits into a category of what's called reductionism. In other words, it's saying that we, as humans, at our core, reduce down to a machine. A really complicated machine of chemicals in your brain that are, like, telling your different body parts what to do, but ultimately it's just chemical reactions, and it's just physical components. There's no soul, there's no spirit, there's no ghost in the shell. It's all just you as a physical object, a physical machine that, however it got created in the first place, whether it's by God or by some sort of physical process, not important at this point. The important thing is, like, the idea of reductionism is that that's all we are, a physical machine, that there's no free will. You're not making choices. So, for example, no matter how complicated the chemical reactions in your brain that drive your actions and thoughts and beliefs and choices are, they're ultimately, it's just a complicated version of chemistry. So, like, a real simple example is, like, sodium chloride, right? Table salt. If you have sodium in the presence of chlorine, that's just going to bond, because sodium has that positive charge and chlorine has that negative charge, and they're just going to chemically bond. They don't think about whether or not they want to bond. They don't bond because they think it's a good idea or a bad idea. They just bond because that's what they are. Okay? And so there's a lot of problems with reductionism. It leads to a real question about whether or not you can trust any of your beliefs, seeing as how there's no real choice to control whether you're honest or rational versus dishonest and irrational. That's a major problem. But the other major problem is one of the major problems, is that morality is not the belief that, like, I am programmed to do this. It's the belief that, like, I should make good choices. I mean, that's what morality is. So in other words, if morality is an illusion, then the illusion has to be explained somehow. And so, in other words, how did evolution create this illusion? That's the point. My point that I'm making to you is that it can't really create this illusion. And what I mean by that is, if you have a machine, like a complicated machine, even a computer, like let's take a simple one, that's really complicated, is just a GPS navigation device in your car, whether it's your phone, whether you bought, a TomTom or something like that. You program that thing with a destination, okay? And especially like your phone will access data through like a stored library of information. It will calculate and it will essentially think and figure out how to objectively reach that goal. Okay? And you've essentially programmed the machine with a goal. And so you could think like, well, that's like us. Evolutionary history has programmed with us a goal of survival of the species. And so that's why we just instinctively, refuse to, allow babies to be hurt. But that doesn't actually explain why we think it's good to protect babies versus bad to hurt them. It doesn't actually explain it. And think about it this way. A machine does not make choices. A machine simply functions according to how it's built. And if it happens to be built wrong, or there's some sort of error in how it's constructed, then it'll function according to that. But it's always going to run. It's essentially a complicated set of gears and circuits or whatever, but it's just a machine. So even electronic circuits you can think of like a physical mechanism of gears. It's just going to do what it does based on how it's built. It's going to run how it's built. So like the GPS in your car, if you take a wrong turn on the way to Albuquerque, it's not going to care that you took a wrong turn. It doesn't think that the goal you programmed it with is a good goal or a bad goal. It has no concept of that. It simply is just a machine that's running according to how it's been made. And when you input certain, when you press buttons on it, you're just putting electrons into current through certain pathways in the transistors, and it's just going through that pathway. You're just switching the gears to run over here versus over here, essentially, just in a very complicated way. But the thing is, the GPS in your car will not get upset with you, will not get mad. It will simply recalculate. And it doesn't matter to that machine if you ever achieve the goal, because it has no concept that like the goal is good or the goal is bad. So in other words, when I was a kid, my uncle used to sit me on his lap all the time and grab my hand and hit me in the head with my hand. Of course, not hard, but he would say, quit hitting yourself, quit hitting yourself, quit hitting yourself. And then I had a cousin who was a couple years younger than me, and he said, quit hitting your cousin, quit hitting your cousin. And I would say, I'm not hitting her, you're hitting her. And I would say, I'm not hitting myself, you're hitting me, you're hitting me. He would say, your hand's the one doing it, your hand's the one doing it. And so we all immediately understand that, like, that's not immoral for me. I had no control. He's stronger than me, he's bigger than me, I'm a helpless, I was like, 3, he's a grown man. So, like, I'm not responsible for hitting my cousin, I'm not responsible for hitting myself, because I had no control over it. I'm just doing what I've been controlled into doing. And so the idea of morality is the idea that you should pursue good goals, that you should make good choices. That's what the idea of morality is. That idea exists. You might say, well, that idea is an illusion and you can't actually make good choices. But the illusion exists because we all have that sense. That sense that like some things are really wrong. Okay, so the idea that evolution has programmed you with a goal of morality is the idea that evolution has programmed you with a goal of freely choosing to be good. So you're going to take a machine, let's say you're evolution. Now that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but let's just pretend that you are evolution and you are building machines, and you're going to program the machine, and the objective you're going to give the machine, the goal you're going to give it, is freely choose to be good. But the machine has no ability to freely choose anything. What is the machine going to do with that information? What is it going to do? But the problem gets worse. What you're doing when you program a machine is you're forcing it to do something, but you're forcing it to pursue a goal of freely choosing to be good. That's the problem. This is a fundamental logical problem. You are programming a machine. You are forcing a machine. Because that's the only thing machines are ever... They don't only do things that they're forced to do, because that's all they are. They don't have free will. They don't have any freedom. They just are what they're made to be. And so they're always forced to do everything they do. And when it is forced to do morality, then it is forced to pursue a goal of freely choosing to be good, because that's what the idea of morality is. And since the idea of morality exists, the question is, how can a machine ever be programmed to ever be forced to pursue a goal of freely choosing to be good? Because let's say that the machine achieves this objective. It achieves the objective of freely choosing to be good. Did the machine do it because it was forced to do so, or because it freely chose to do so? Well, it can't possibly be either. In other words, yeah, it achieved the goal of freely choosing to be good, but it only did it because it was forced to do so. That doesn't make any sense. In other words, this is like if I was to tell you that 3 plus 4 makes 1,000. It's just logically impossible. You know, for example, in physics, we know that Einstein's relativity does not explain how gravity works like inside atoms. Because if you work out Einstein's equations for gravity inside atoms, you get 1 divided by 0, which is mathematical nonsense. It's actually, if I remember correctly, it's 1 divided by an infinitely long string of zeros. And so we say, well, Einstein's equations do not explain how gravity works at that scale, at that tiny scale. You know, so it's just mathematically impossible. You know, there are some things that are just logically impossible, and it doesn't matter what you see. You know, so the idea that you can freely choose to do something because you were forced to do it is logically impossible. It's like saying, you know, I'm pregnant and I'm not pregnant, or I'm a married bachelor, you know, or, you know, everything I say is true and everything I say is a lie. Like, both of those cannot logically be true. So it's just it's logically impossible. So you cannot explain the idea, the sense of good and evil with evolution. It cannot possibly explain it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for your time.